Fall in love with 252 exclusive offers on the Citroën range at Hugo Luna Motors today. Explore our impressive collection of Citroën cars and vans, where advanced comfort, style, safety and reliability all come together. Order your 252 today and take advantage of low-rate finance, a €500 deposit contribution and avail of a free home charger. Book your test drive today at hugolunamotors.ie. Citroën. For everyone, like no one.
Citroën. It's time for Taking Care of Business on Midlands 103. With thanks to the local enterprise offices of Leash, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
Hello and good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Taking Care of Business. As the intro said, I'm Ronan Berry. This is Midlands 103, and coming up for you over the next hour, I'll be speaking to Portarlington's Stuart McCaul. He's the founder and CEO of Ishikawa Technologies. I'll talk to him about building a global software acquisition company and why he calls himself a socialist capitalist. Stay tuned for that story. It's a fascinating look inside Irish SaaS deals, but there is so many wonderful points in it. He worked for a number of years for a company based in Austin, Texas, without leaving the shed in his house in Portarlington. Gives you a hint as to the time, so we'll find out the who, the why, the what. There's already been some major deals and acquisitions already, and I'm going to find out all about Stuart's highly ambitious plans. That's all coming a little bit later. We'll also meet Mullingar's Mark Brady, the founder of Bravo Contracts, and Mark will talk about their rapid growth. They're only going a couple of years. They're almost up at 50 employees at this point in time. They picked up a major award at the Mullingar Chamber Awards last month. And just yesterday, they held an amazing online raffle and a local family benefited to the tune of €1,000. Not just that, but local charities also benefited too. So Mark will be along to take us through those key elements of their story over the past couple of years. So as always, jam-packed show, lots happening. If you want to be part of this evening's show, you can join me by text or WhatsApp. It's the quickest and easiest way. 083 3010 103 is the number. Or you can email me business@midlands103.com. But coming up this evening, first, have you got time to offer your services as a volunteer? And before you scream, no, I don't have any time, I'm not going to lecture you about putting down your phone and coming off social media and doom scrolling and finding that extra time. But I think a lot of people listening probably know they've got a skill set that they could lend to many voluntary organisations or even just one organisation. And that might be for as little as 1 hour a month. And that could actually be a game changer or a real turning point for that organisation. The good news is there's ways you can do that as well. And to find out one way how, I'm delighted to be joined by Deirdre Fox from Offaly Volunteer Centre. Evening, Deirdre.
Hi, Ronan. How are you? Good to be here.
Deirdre, you're here to talk to us about your professional exchange programme. Talk us through the genesis of that. Where did the idea come from and how did you decide to go about launching this?
Well, we call it a professional exchange bank, and bank is exactly what it is. It's an initiative of Offaly Volunteer Centre, and it is being rolled out currently in the Tullamore area on a pilot basis first. So what is it? It's the professional exchange bank is a way for local professionals and tradespeople to donate a slice of their working week to community and voluntary organisations that could never normally afford their skills. So I suppose let me put it into perspective. There are a large number of organisations out there that sometimes can struggle with the most simple of things, whether it's to change a light bulb or to approach a situation where bookkeeping is a contentious issue or people are finding it difficult. And we're asking the community in Tullamore, the business community in Tullamore, not just the business community, but any of you out there that have any skills that you feel that a voluntary organisation could benefit from, we would like to invite you to contact us in Offaly Volunteer Centre, info@volunteeroffaly.ie, and register your interest with us first, and then we're going to launch the programme on the 9th of December, between 11:30 and 12. So it's 11:30 and 12:30. Sorry, I will be murdered for that because I'm getting it wrong the whole time. But just let me tell you that really we have quite a number of organisations in the Tullamore area alone. And with over 1 million people in Ireland volunteering each year, whether it's coaching or sitting on a board or helping at events, there are always some issues that need to be resolved, and it would help people to become more involved if they knew that there was that type of support. Our proposal is that you would come along and you would register with us in Offaly Volunteer Centre for the Professional Exchange Bank alone. We would take whatever hours you have, we would register whatever the skill you are offering, and then we would bank it. And then on the other side, we would offer those skills to our organisations that are registered with us. We have over 400 organisations throughout the county that are registered with us. As I said, this is a pilot project in the Tullamore area, and we are not only calling on members of the Chambers of Commerce or of Rotary or of the Lions Club or of Probus. They're the 4 organisations that we have targeted mostly. But some of you out there are not necessarily members of any of those organisations. Please feel free to contact us at info@volunteeroffaly.ie, or you can contact the office on 083 0154 669. So there's 2 ways that you can get in touch with us over the next couple of days. We have to give our numbers, to be fair, to the Tullamore Court, and that is happening at a brunch event next Tuesday, the 9th of December. So
the primary target then is the individual listening, or can a company also get involved in this?
We would be delighted to receive support from all types and all walks. We're not reserved in any way. If you have a particular skill, one example, I have quite a good friend who is a journalist, and she's going to come along because she has helped me out on many occasions, not only just to write press releases, but also there's a huge challenge for volunteers to complete application forms for funding. They don't mind doing it, but it is, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. So we also have a gentleman who comes to our centre and supports us. He's a retired professional. He's an accountant by profession, and he comes down to us once a month. But now he does come down quite a lot more. But that's because he has the time and the interest, and we have him involved in other organisations also, advising them on simple bookkeeping. The way it would work, and this is what we envisage, and as I said, it's a pilot, and after each pilot time, which will be for 1 year, we will do a review to see what worked and what didn't work. What we'll do is we will arrange, if you have a skill and one of our voluntary organisations requires that skill, we will arrange a service level agreement between the organisation and the person who has the hours to deliver. We will agree the set amount of hours. If it exceeds those hours, then we will sit down with the organisation and the individual again. If the individual is quite willing to go ahead and support it, that's fine. We are not asking for a long-term commitment. We have a wonderful programme in Offaly Volunteer Centre, also called the Community Volunteers Programme, and that's once-off volunteering at different events. It's a similar concept. We don't want you to commit to hours and hours. It's a set time agreed between the deliverer and the recipient.
So if you were a highly skilled financial accountant, or maybe a cybersecurity expert, or somebody from the public sector who has huge experience filling in forms, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to be buttering bread for sandwiches straight away. That can come at your own choice down the line.
Absolutely.
You're looking for those key skills, those short-term volunteers, and you've loads of examples of the power of that one-off advice that I guess so many organisations are probably just missing, that person or that they can go through yourselves just to get that, that industry level advice.
And can I also say that our volunteer involving organisations have enormous skill, and they possibly don't realise that they may have the answer to the issues within themselves, but the person who is going to support them might release that, might facilitate that acknowledgement that they have that. Ireland, as I said, is a huge community and voluntary sector. We are members of the Wheel, and it estimates that over 35,000 organisations nationwide, employing 1 in every 8 workers and involving over 76,000 volunteer trustees. Now, most are small, volunteer run and face growing compliance, governance and financial pressures. And we agree with all of that. It is so important to be compliant, to respect your boards and ensure that they have the governance that they require. But if you have a few hours as a qualified professional, sometimes you can unblock months of stress for those organisations.
you're clearly seen from engaging those organisations the skill sets they need. If I had to ask you for 2 or 3 this evening that you think are in most need out there, is there a short list?
Okay, first of all, let me tell you that it helps community and voluntary organisations by giving them access to expert support that could never afford. It strengthens governance, finance policies, safety and planning. It prevents costly mistakes and keeps them compliant with charity law, company law and revenue requirements, and allows organisations that have tiny budgets to stretch further so they can focus on delivering services. I'm talking about every voluntary organisation in our orbit.
Absolutely. So really any skill, because every county has its hidden experts. They're out there in everyday life. If you can capture them, allow them to give back even in that small capacity, huge potential. Deirdre, remind us of the email address or how people can just actually register interest for the event next week, but also to get into that.
So please register for the event next week because it'll give you an opportunity to meet like-minded people. The email address is info@volunteeroffaly.ie, or the telephone number to make direct contact with Deirdre or Claire is 083 0154669.
It sounds like a fantastic initiative. Really looking forward to seeing how the pilot goes, what the results are down the line. I think it's a great idea. And I think so many people listening, you say, not just limited to Tullamore, you can travel, you can lend expertise even remotely.
There are tradesmen out there as well, and we would be absolutely delighted to hear from you first of all, and then to see you at that event on Tuesday the 9th of December.
That's this day next week. Deirdre Fox from Offaly Volunteer Centre, thank you for that this evening.
Thank you so much.
Time for a quick break now. After that though, you're going to meet the award-winning contractor from Westmeath, who really is filled with the Christmas spirit.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
So to come on this show, we'll talk about the company that is headquartered in Portarlington in County Offaly, and they are looking really at the acquisitions market, particularly when it comes to software companies, and especially those that are founder-led. There's been some big acquisitions already, including a major one earlier this year. It's a really fascinating story though, and we'll meet the founder of that company very, very shortly on the show. But before that, we're going to meet another founder, this time of Bravo Contracts Limited, based in Mullingar in Westmeath. His name is Mark Brady, and this really is a rapid rise in terms of Bravo contracts. They recently picked up a major award at the Mullingar Chamber Awards. Let's find out more about them. Good evening, Mark.
How are you, Ronan?
Mark, fantastic. There's the story of Bravo Contracts. We don't have to go back too far to the beginnings of it, do we?
No, just to May 2023 was when we started. We started with 4 guys on a small project in Shannon, and within 6 months we were at 17, 18 guys, and now we're standing as of last week at 53. So, and still climbing. I'm looking for more. So,
which is really interesting because you won an award at Mullingar Chambers for outstanding SME. I think it was whatever below 50 employees. You've already surpassed that, which is phenomenal going. Talk us about the business though. What is it you do? Because to scale things that rapidly, there must be something very niche or specific going on.
I'm an electrical contractor. So when I started off first, I predominantly supplied labour hire to Tier 1 contractors, mainly the likes of Kirby Group Engineering. I've also supplied Shure, Cloncad, CJK. And originally, all I was doing was basically per hour supply a man. And then it changed. One of the contract managers said to me, would you not try to take a package where you buy it? There's more risk, obviously, but there's more reward, there's more profit. So I started off with a couple of small packages, and it sort of just snowballed from there. I was fairly careful with who I've hired. Anybody who works for me is somebody that I've worked with previously, or somebody who works for me has worked with, because the standard of electricians in Ireland is pretty poor, to be honest. So you really have to go through 10 or 11 before you find one good one. But I'm just lucky now. I have a lot of diamonds now, in fairness. Without them, there is no business.
That was something I was just going to explore with you and see how do you go about recruiting and retaining staff like that, given the amount of labour shortage that's out there too. Your criticism there of maybe the standards across the country, do you bring in apprentices as well, or how can that be improved overall?
So COVID sort of killed every industry at the time, and the problem was a lot of apprentices are time served now, where they spent 2.5 years sitting at home really. They didn't really get to learn their trade, and they passed their exams, but they've lost a lot of time where they would have been hands-on. And unfortunately, it's just, you won't really see the knock-on effect, I think, for another 5 or 6 years till these guys are properly out on their own. But I just think that COVID had a big impact there. I'd be lucky enough now, like I hire certain type of guys, like if they come from a farming background or a football background, that they have a little bit of discipline. And I just find that works for me. Like, I'm a townie, but to be honest, I wouldn't hire a townie.
It's lovely. Last week across even national media and in local papers and everything, there was talks about AI scanning CVs and, where people using AI to write job specs and all that. And somebody said, yeah, well, the candidates are also then using AI to write their job responses. It's lovely to hear somebody talk about going back to those traditional things. Do they play GA? Do we know who they are? Clearly, it's working well for you.
Yeah, well, it's something that all my apprentices, like I had an easy enough apprenticeship now. I served with Mercury 25 years ago now at this stage. But again, I was a metal muncher, which means I only did conduit, trunk and tray. I didn't touch any wires, and the apprenticeship was easy. But when I came out of my time, I struggled for the first couple of years because I was so far behind guys who worked with smaller companies who'd get to see everything, whereas I was only seeing just a portion of the trade. So I've made it my business now that any young lad that comes through, he goes to the bigger sites, but I also bring him domestically as well, so they get to see everything. Like, I'd expect my second years to be as good as electricians by the time they get to that stage. So not only is it good for them, it's obviously better for me as well.
But obviously the demands too of your clients are probably rising and getting higher and higher each year, so you actually have to have a workforce that can meet those demands.
Yeah, especially in the likes of the packages where you're taking a risk. So you're buying a contract off a tier one contractor there, and like, for instance, it could be $250,000, but that $250,000 can disappear very quick if you fall behind or if you're not meeting deadlines. So the quality of your staff becomes huge then. Like I said again, I'm lucky enough that the guys I have are very, very strong. I don't have to double check their work. Like, we win, like, I know we won the award last week. We also got Contractor of the Month in Dexcom, a major project in Athenry off Kirby's. We've won numerous safety awards as well, but it's the standard of the guys. Like, look, I only steer the ship, but it's them who do their own.
Absolutely, no. And again, you can't get to the heights you're at without that too. And a quick scan of your social media shows you're actively recruiting all the time.
I am. Now, again, I'm fairly selective in it. Like, so I could probably get, like, genuinely, I probably get maybe 10 or 15 every 2 days, and you might get one a week that's even worth taking a second glance at, unfortunately. Like, so, but I try to hire local, and I'm actually looking at my board of employees here. I'm in the office, and it's like, I know every single person that's on the board, and I knew them before they started, or I knew of them, or a family member, and it's just, I find that works for me. Like, I could easily grow the company to 100 guys, but I dilute the strength of the workforce, and I'm not interested in doing that. I've built a name on how good our guys are.
And so from the leadership perspective too, though, you're going to have to look at maybe giving out some of that as well, having other people come up into senior roles too. Have you got plans on that, particularly if you were to scale it, even double or treble in the next couple of years?
Well, even at the moment, I have a guy, Ronan Flanagan. I've worked with Ronan for years, so Ronan's my number 2. And to be honest, the business doesn't work without Ronan. So he's sort of my boots on the ground on the bigger projects, and he keeps everything running, the day-to-day side of it. Like, but I'd hope so at some stage that he could step into my shoes and maybe I can sail off into the sun at some stage.
For some reason that's going to happen anyway. I don't think you'd let yourself do that. But I suppose we get more of a sense of Mark when we look about what you've been doing lately. You ran a fantastic raffle there in the run up to Christmas, and the prize was €1,000 voucher. I think for Smith's Toys, was it, for a local family? For Smith's, yeah. A wonderful gesture. Undoubtedly, you had a big response to that.
Yeah, we had 486 shares. Like, I was actually, the idea just came into my head driving one day. I seen 2 people that just, they weren't well off crossing the street, and I got the idea that, like, I remember it's only 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I met my wife, and at the time I was unemployed, and I was taking handouts from social welfare and from St. Vincent de Paul at the time. And so I've gone from there to now to being able to give something back, and it's brilliant. Now, look, it's only something small, but I'm hoping now, it was Michael Mears who won the prize, and I'm delighted for him now, a local guy from town. So he won it, and he's had a tragedy in the family, the extended family, this week, where a member committed suicide, and his own brother had committed suicide actually only a few years back as well. So originally I was to do €250 to a charity of your choice. Then I said, as every 100 shares, I'd start to add it, but I brought it up to €1,000, and this, he picked Pieta House, obviously because it's close to his heart. So I donated €1,000 to Pieta House today, just in aid of suicide prevention.
Yeah,
because unfortunately it's a pandemic in Ireland at the moment.
That's a fantastic gesture, and I think so much in what you've said there, your own honesty about your own personal circumstances just 10 years ago, that can be anybody. It could be anybody sitting there tonight. For that family to receive that €1,000 voucher, again, could put a different perspective on Christmas, notwithstanding the shock and tragedy they've had themselves. But then to further that up with a donation to charity, really, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do and a fantastic thing to give back to your community. And you've been known for sponsoring many soccer teams and sports clubs around the area too.
Yeah, I used to get slagged off. I'd have more clubs now than Tiger Woods. So I tended to follow wherever the success was. So I'd have a lot of medals, but no real loyalties as such now. But I finished off at Mullingar Town, probably my longest club, and I sponsored them heavily now for the last few years. And then I noticed I started to pick up a little bit of business. And I always think you have to spend, speculate to accumulate, I think is the phrase. So I've a neighbour down the road here, a young guy, Jack Penrose, who I sponsor at the moment, a footballer. He's probably going to be the biggest footballer in the world, and you heard it here first. So he has outrageous talent.
Fantastic. And again, looking like any of those sports stars, they need that local backing. They need, our local companies. We see things there like Alex Dunn getting sponsorship from Condren Concrete in Tullamore. That makes such a difference to those people who have that potential to really put them on the world stage. So sounds fantastic. You might have, or if it all doesn't work out, you'll have him wiring houses or wiring doing electrical work anyway.
Yeah, I'll give him the apprenticeship. Yeah.
He'll always have a fallback on it. Mark, I think it's a brilliant story. Thank you for sharing, for your honesty, and it's an amazing story in terms of the growth of Bravo Contracts Limited, and undoubtedly the award you picked up in Mullingar 2 weeks ago is not going to be the last one. Thanks a million, Mark.
Brilliant. Thanks for the call, Ronan.
Not at all.
Thanks very much.
An absolute pleasure and well done again. That's Mark Brady there, the founder and owner of Bravo Contracts Limited based in Mullingar. I don't have to say that, and do I? What a story. What a remarkable growth trajectory they've been on, and they're not finished yet, but a very personal story too, and what a great way to give back to our local community at any time of year, especially though coming up to Christmas. Now, time for me to take a quick break. After that, you're going to meet the founder of Ishikawa Technologies, and they're on a rapid plan to acquire many software companies. So if you're in a software company that's founder-led, stay tuned after this break.
Surprise yourself with the all-new 252 Suzuki range at Hugo Luna Motors. Suzuki's Japanese quality is ready to stand out and make you feel proud every time you drive. Whether it's the zippy Swift or the adventure-ready S-Cross, enjoy 0% finance, handy tech, safety features and great value as standard, all wrapped in the fun and efficiency of a hybrid. The only tough part? Choosing which car to drive. Visit hugolunamotors.ie today, where we're not just different, we're good different. Finance subject status, terms and conditions apply.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
We're going to kind of switch teams now and start looking at software as a service and look at acquisitions and mergers, bit of venture capital, maybe a bit of private equity in between. We can talk about Texan billionaires. We can talk about working from your shed in Portarlington for a company based in Austin, Texas. And you kind of get a sense of maybe a very dynamic and fast-moving and fast-paced story. And some of those acquisitions included recently this year the Big Red Book back in April of 2025, a major acquisition by this company. It's led by Stuart McCaul, who lives in Portarlington, and it's called Ishikawa Technologies. I hope I've pronounced that right, Stuart. Good evening.
That's as close as a pronunciation as I can get myself.
Lovely stuff. It's a Japanese name, is it?
Yeah, Kugoro Ishikawa was a Japanese thinker in organisational design and systems thinking, and his ideas are behind just-in-time manufacturing, agile, lean, Six Sigma, ideas that we take for granted in business now. But he really focused on efficiency, and his ideas came together, if you like, in the Toyota production method. And in Texas, in my shed in Portarlington, working for a company based in Texas, I learned how to take those Toyota ideas and use them in a knowledge work environment in a software company.
And that shift has been very obvious over the last number of years. When we first in this country started talking about lean, we only spoke about manufacturing. Nowadays, through Enterprise Office grants or Enterprise Ireland grants, it really is looking at any business. I've had hotel businesses, everything in between, come on the show and speak about their lean journeys. You're given a hint now maybe as to the approach you take to these acquisitions, very much in the software sector. But talk to us about working for this company in Austin from your shed in Portarlington. I have visions of Claire Byrne during COVID here.
It was just like that. I built the shed for the job. I had only really a few weeks to do it. I'm not really handy. I had to buy the second-hand tools, went to Fletcher's in Portarlington to get the timber and put it together, and pulled in my brother-in-law, my dad, my father-in-law and my wife and others, and anybody who could hold a nail steady for me and rush the thing together. But everybody who worked for that Texas company was remote. So we hired people as contractors all over the world. And lots of people actually were working from their garden or from their kitchen table or from a table in their bedroom. And we worked in a way, in a very sort of COVID-friendly way, but actually everybody there had been working remotely for over a decade. So the company was really well practiced in designing work to suit a remote working context. And what that meant was simplifying everybody's job, defining it really clearly, understanding what were the inputs and outputs for each task, and assessing or asserting and then assessing quality bars on all of those inputs and outputs. And so the company really ran like a factory, very, very efficiently. As an employee, the benefit of that is you got immediate feedback on every task, every single thing you did. You get feedback straight away. You weren't waiting for an annual review with your boss to find out if you were hitting the mark. And I've continued. I love that approach, and I try to bring that forward now.
So still very much in software development sphere. Is that a culture that just kind of organically exists there and therefore isn't quite transferable to other businesses, or is exactly what you're doing? You're sort of saying, no, this can be used in any company.
Yeah, I think if it can be used in a car manufacturing plant and also in a software company, it's probably widely applicable. But it does. I guess it's more easily adapted to an environment where people are prepared to have their work quality assessed at all times. But you have to change your mind about a lot of things. For example, we're hiring at Big Red Book at the moment, and we were talking about what's the role of a manager. Well, in my philosophy, a manager's job is to quality control the work of their team and to improve the system so that they're getting ever greater outcome for their customers. In most companies, say a sales manager's job, for example, is to do the big deals rather than to spend time making sure that there's a really good sales system and that his team are performing well.
Absolutely, and so many listening will empathise with that or recognise that in companies they've worked for, or maybe even in their own companies too. When it came to then establishing Ishikawa Technologies, when did that begin, and when did this kind of appetite for applying those systems to other companies, particularly tech companies, when did that first start emerging, and how did you go about it? Because obviously you had to raise some capital to do all this.
I did have to raise some capital, and I'd never really done that before. So I had to make friends. I spent a lot of time networking. I suppose I started focusing on it full time early in 2024. And then I had raised the capital and done the first deal in early 2025. So it took a year. I met everybody I met. I asked for an introduction to somebody who might be able to help me. You know, I was, as I said recently, I was burning through shoe leather, walking around Dublin and London, meeting people for fundraising, and also to see if I could find software company founders who were interested in discussing an exit. And so it was a lot of coffee over a long period of time. But my friends helped me. One good friend of mine, Kevin Keegan from Tullamore, is an executive search consultant and specialises in coaching and organisational development. He has a phenomenal network and introduced me to some of the most important people in this story, you know. And I was really lucky, I suppose, that I was able to meet people who were willing to give me their time and their attention and support me so that we could get this going.
You've made it sound way too easy. Now, when it comes to raising that initial round of capital, was it one major investor? Did you have to reach out to many different investors? Because you clearly got your elevator pitch right in terms of hooking them and getting them involved and getting behind the vision you had.
Well, there's great value in mature software companies who have lots and lots of customers. You know, Big Red Book, the first deal we did, has nearly 25,000 companies in Ireland using it for bookkeeping, payroll administration, and now inventory management. And with a huge customer base, there's a lot that you can do. You can take on a company like that with a view to taking even more market share in Ireland, or developing a much broader software suite for those 25,000 customers, or, you know, take it international, obviously starting in the UK. And so the world is your oyster when you've got a great asset like that, with really loyal customers who love the product. And when you take that to investors, it's actually easy to have a conversation that says, you know, this is a really worthwhile, promising, solid, safe enough investment. But then the trick was finding the type of investors who wanted to support Ishikawa Technologies, not just say Big Red Book. And at Ishikawa, we're hoping to do multiple software acquisitions. For the company in Texas, we had 150 software companies in the portfolio. And my ambition would be to do that now in Europe using Ishikawa Technologies as the vehicle. So I was looking for an investor who had that same ambition. And so I talked to all the banks, I spoke to all the family offices, I spoke to the sort of second tier and alternative lenders, I spoke to venture capitalists. But in the end, I did a deal with Melior Equity Partners, a firm in Dublin, who have a large fund with Irish sovereign wealth, with money from AIB and Bank of Ireland, with investment from family offices and others. And with that, with them as a lead investor, some small investments from some other people who I'd met along the way who wanted to remain involved. And so we put a fund together, we did our first acquisition, and now we're looking for more.
At the time that you acquired Big Red Book, they were generating about 3.5 million revenue. You said you have 25,000 customers in Ireland alone. I'm sure people listening are going, well, how were they able to be bought? But you made some sweeping changes quite quickly. Again, kind of your experience based in your shed in Portlaoise. Did you close their office?
Yeah.
Which I know sounds terrible, but this was a cost-saving initiative, yeah?
There was quite a luxurious office in Glenageary in Dublin, and nobody was ever there. For the first few weeks after the acquisition, I was the only person in the office, unless I had specifically invited somebody in, more or less. And so it was myself and the server rack in the corner of the room. And so everybody wanted to work from home. It was the easiest thing, and it was the nicest thing to do for the employees at Big Red Book to say, let's just not have an office anymore. Let's make sure people are well set up at home. And yeah, it was an obvious and quick cost-cutting opportunity. And we made other changes. We offered very lucrative or well incentivized voluntary redundancy scheme, and lots of people in the company had very long service, and they thought they'd take advantage of that big payout, and off they went. And that made it very easy for me then to sort of restructure the company and start to create the roles that I wanted to create in the company, like investing in customer success, investing in building out a stronger software development team, testing team in Ireland, investing in customer support roles. And this meant that I could really improve the quality of service delivered to the customers, and also look at expansion overseas. You're
also dealing, though, in a sector that people can probably be quite mobile in terms of picking up new jobs. There's probably plenty of opportunities for people in that. So maybe are those negotiations a bit easier in terms of those redundancy packages, or is that a fair assessment of that industry?
Well, I guess everybody's own experience is quite individual. I contracted a guy called Jimmy Fisher to do what's called an outplacement service. Jimmy helped each person who wanted to take voluntary redundancy over a period of a few months, several meetings, to get their head around the next step and get ready for the next step in their lives, whether that was retirement or go travel the world or prepare for their next role. I thought that was an important thing to do, and it turns out the people who took the redundancy offers really appreciated that service.
That whole focus then as well, you mentioned on kind of like almost a new product development piece. Enterprise Ireland are now playing a role too. You're developing an inventory management tool. And there's a partnership signed with an arm of NatWest, I believe.
Yeah, NatWest is a huge bank, and they actually give software to their customers free of charge, which I think is fantastic. And we're partnering with their software arm, Free Agent, to deliver our inventory management solution as an add-on to their accounting system. It turns out that a lot of small businesses are struggling with inventory, lots and lots of spreadsheets, very little visibility into cash flow, gross margin, keeping the right level of stock and keeping customers serviced. And actually in Ireland, I find one of the things that small businesses really struggle with is collecting cash and keeping on top of who owns them money. So the inventory management tool, as we call it, is really a lightweight ERP, and it's helping companies run much more efficiently. It's a young product, so we are putting €2 million into it, and I think it's going to be a world-renowned product in 5 years' time.
Absolutely, and the EI backing will help in that too. Stuart is going to put a call out very shortly and going to tell us about the exact type of companies that he's looking for. If you are open to acquisition, or maybe you know somebody in that space, we'll find out about that after the break, because he recently described himself in an article in the Irish Independent as that his job is being a capitalist, but it is actually a socialist. So I'm going to explore that after this quick break.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
My guest in studio this evening, who you've been hearing from before the break as well, is Stuart McCaul from Ishikawa Technologies. It all started in a self-built shed in his garden in Portarlington, and before the break we heard a lot about their first acquisition, which was Big Red Book, and how that has developed into a new project as well, developing new products, some of which is going to be used by NatWest in England with some backing from Enterprise Ireland, as well as putting their own funding in. So let's explore more the types of software companies that Stuart and his company are keen on learning about or finding out about, or maybe even acquiring. You very much look, Stuart, for founder-led software companies, not necessarily startups either.
No, not startups. Yeah, our business plan is to acquire a portfolio of mature software companies with lots and lots of happy customers. The advantage there is there's great cash flow, which your business listeners will appreciate. And there's also a willingness to give you enough rope to hang yourself, I suppose, on behalf of those customers who maybe have been with the company that you're buying for a long period of time, who love it and who want to see it thrive. And my specialism really is in the simplification of businesses that we acquire, and I can do a really good job then, therefore, with a mature company. So we're looking for software companies, usually probably still founder-led, with revenue up to, say, 20 million euros, and maybe with profit around 3-5 million euros, something like that. And essentially what we're saying to these founders is we're like the lottery. If they're ready for an exit, they can have a big win here very quickly because we have the capital ready to go. We know exactly what we're looking for. And they could move on very happily, knowing that we'll take really good care of their employees, we'll take really good care of their customers, and their legacy will be protected.
That comes out from the way you spoke about Big Red Book, that you actually take hands-on roles within those companies, maybe not physically within them, as you kind of pointed out, but that you are coming in to manage, not just, I heard before somebody talked about like venture capital as like a marriage with a planned divorce. You're not necessarily looking at your exit from it, or are you?
No, I think the way to look at this is take a really long-term view, not to be an absentee landlord, but to roll up the sleeves, get stuck in, get to know the customers, get to know the employees, and learn what's really going to make a difference. That'll inform really intelligent sort of product strategy, and keep a company sustainable for another 10, 20 years.
We have to mention AI. There's lots of talk stateside about AI bubbles and that it may eventually burst, and that some of the biggest companies, even companies like Nvidia, have so much money put aside or money gone into AI technology that it cannot last. Is AI influencing the decisions ye make? Is it the future, or do we all just take a deep breath and realise it's just a productivity tool at the end of the day?
Well, for the founders that I'm talking to, I think now is a pretty sweet time for them to exit if they are planning to do so in the next few years, because currently tech valuations are very high, and that's been driven almost entirely by, as you say, the AI bubble. And after the bubble bursts, we'll still have a few months of high private tech company valuations, but those valuations will start to come down shortly after that bubble bursts. There's a big opportunity in software as a service to improve automation around the jobs to be done. And so I think software tools that companies are buying will become more useful over time. But actually, there's quite a lot of hesitation around using AI-enabled features. And I think rightly so, because we need to figure out the ethics of it. We need to understand how it works, whether it can do a high-quality job consistently. And at the same time, yeah, I'd say there is too much hype at the moment, and the ability for AI to deliver is an awful lot less than the hype would suggest. I see now the likes of McKinsey are reporting that almost every enterprise who's embarked on an AI project has had that project fail. And so a great deal of money is currently going into experimenting with AI, but it's not necessarily delivering for businesses yet.
Yeah, and when we hear you earlier speak about looking at companies like Big Red Book, looking at companies who are giving great service to customers and further enhancing that, it almost sounds like back to basics, even though it's business 101 as well. You describe yourself in a recent article as being a capitalist, that your job is being a capitalist, but you're actually a socialist. So I take from that, you want to make a load of money, retire as early as you can, and then give back. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I have personal experience with the social safety net. You know, while I was building Ishikawa, I had no job, I had no income. I know what that's like. I spent most of my career as a contractor, and about 7 years ago I was unemployed. And I did a free course with the Education and Training Board in Dunleary in project management. That was crucial to getting the job in Texas. And so I can see how important the social safety net is, even for big capitalists like me. But I think what's important is I do want to make a profit. I want to make a sustainable profit. I think a lot of people who are involved in private equity are interested in extractive approach, you know, maximize the profit, as they say, milk the cash. I think that's really short-sighted, and I'd prefer to build something sustainable where employees can be well looked after and customers can be really successful. At Big Red Book, for example, we made sure nobody's below the living wage, introduced pension, healthcare, that sort of thing. And I think it's really important to be able to do that. And then we're also very focused on trying to deliver increasing business value for customers. That's how they'll remain loyal to us. And so, you know, it can be win-win-win.
Will it always be headed from Portarlington, and will it all be entirely remote? Like, is the shed the key part of this?
Well, at a board meeting last week, one of the other directors suggested that we relocate the company officially to Portarlington. It's currently registered in Dublin, just sort of by default. But I like the idea of building out the company in the Midlands. There are a lot of talented people here, and people don't necessarily want to be commuting to Dublin or have a Dublin-centric life anymore. Yeah. And so, I like the idea. Why not make Portarlington a global tech hub?
Well, there you go. You heard it first here on Midlands 103. Beyond that, like with the people who work for you or in those companies you acquire as well, and you mentioned about that kind of social piece, is there parts of the workforce now, even the professional sector, that maybe are getting a little bit left behind? There's assumptions that, you know, they've got great fluidity when it comes to cash. That mightn't be the case maybe on the ground, given cost of living, you know, the cost of bringing up children or that. Like, are there pieces of the puzzle maybe that we're overlooking nationally?
Well, youth unemployment is on the rise. I'm not sure if that's what you had in mind, but that's a seriously worrying indicator, I think. And as technology advances, I think we need to be careful not to lose older people in that digitization. So there's a danger of people being left behind, and I think inequality is something we really need to look out for. In the tech industry, we also have too many men and not enough women. So there are sort of imbalances and inequalities that I think deserve some attention.
Yeah, I think many people listening would agree with you on that as well. So Portarlington potentially will be the global hub of one of the biggest tech companies in Europe.
That's my ambition, and I'm getting great support. I think one thing I've noticed is that the education and training boards nationwide are really trying to drive more balanced regional development and raise skills nationwide. And I don't see any reason to sort of push back against that. I think we can work with that as business owners, develop a more balanced economy and have a thriving digital Midlands.
Absolutely. I think ask anybody who's been on the M7, the M50, the M11 in the last couple of months and they would say, yep, give me a role in Portarlington if I can, or wherever suits them across the Midlands. Stuart McCaul, thank you so much for coming over this evening. It's been fascinating. It's a journey I look forward to watching and see where it goes.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
There'll be a second story on that shed soon enough anyway. And there you go. It all started in a shed in Portarlington that he had to assemble himself and put together. And now what he's putting together is potentially a big player when it comes to software as a service companies, not just in Ireland, but right across Europe. If you've been listening, Ishikawa Technologies, just Google Stuart McCaul. You'll find him. You'll find the company. Get in touch if you need. He's got a great network and he's got room to expand that as well. Maybe the time is coming for you now to consider that exit from your company if the value of it maybe is higher now than it might potentially be in just a few short years. And nice how we finish off speaking about the kind of socialist element or that side of it, because we started this evening speaking with Deirdre Fox from Offaly Volunteer Centre about their exchange bank, and they're launching that this day next week at the Tullamore Court Hotel. And if you've got even an hour of a skill set you can lend to voluntary organisations, they've got a great pilot programme that's starting. Offaly Volunteer Centre or volunteeroffaly.ie is their website. You can find out more. Thanks for listening. Joe Cooney's here next with Country Roads after 8. I'll talk to you all next week.